Well, he has definitely been through here, Jekyll said as he walked from the hotel.
Where did she say he went?
Constance asked as she looked around the village. Of course, the inn lady has no idea, Jekyll said as he stepped down from the stoop that wrapped around the building.
Then how do you know he was here?
Asked Constance Dunlop in a bewildering fashion. One of the guests recognized the description I gave the clerk.
So where do we go from here?
Constance asked as she placed both hands upon her hips. I guess we keep moving forward, and who knows, we might just come across him, Jekyll said as he walked towards the carriage. Excuse me, sir, how much for the carriage? Asked Jekyll.
Pardon me, sir. Might you be the esteemed Dr. Henry Jekyll?
A voice called out from behind Jekyll as he handed the money over for the carriage owner.
Jekyll, get out of here!
Constance shouted as she turned to see the man that had called out to the doctor. Jekyll, of course, turned also to see what had caused Constance such alarm. There standing before him was the filthiest of men he had ever seen in his life, all staring at Jekyll. Their clothes were ripped and torn, barely hanging off their thin frames. Most wore lots of jewelry around their necks and in their earlobes. And who might you be? Jekyll asked, ignoring Constance Dunlop's warning.
Jekyll, don't. That is Captain Blood.
Constance said, referring to the big man standing in front of a group of about 10 men. So, you are the most feared pirate ever to sail on the high seas to this date? Jekyll asked as he started towards the pirate clan.
That's right, mate, and we have been hired to bring you with us,
said Captain Blood, as he placed one of his massive paw-like hands on his scabbard handle. Is that the truth? Jekyll said as he looked over towards Constance and grinned. He could see that the woman was extremely nervous.
That be the truth of the matter, mate. Now come along peacefully so we can collect our bounty,
the big pirate said. If you do not mind me inquiring, how was it you found me so easily?
Wasn't hard. You were looking for someone, as we were, and we found you. Besides, we know what happened on the Nautilus.
Oh, so that's when you picked up our trail, Jekyll said.
Ah. Now if you'll be coming along, we'll let the wench go,
Blood said as he stroked his long black beard.
Wench?
Constance said as she reached behind her back and pulled out a small revolver and pointed it at Captain Blood.
If any one of you filthy wretches makes a move, I will kill him,
Constance said.
All right, boys. The lady has a gun. No one move, or she might shoot her little toe off,
Blood said, followed by a hearty laugh, as his men did the same. Constance looked towards Jekyll, who just shrugged his shoulders slightly. Constance then let the hammer fall on the pistol, and as she did, one of Blood's men fell to the ground dead.
I can't believe it. She killed him,
another of his men cried out.
Now, anyone else care to test my marksmanship?
Asked Dunlap.
All right, Jekyll, let's go,
she said as she started backing away from the pirates. Sorry, boys, but after all, she is the one that's holding the gun, Jekyll said as he too turned to follow the lady.
Okay, boys,
Blood called out, and soon after there were pirates popping up all around, from out of doors, from rooftops, from almost anywhere the eye could see. I hope you have enough bullets, Jekyll whispered to Constance.
Like I said, Dr. Jekyll, you are coming with us,
Captain Blood said as he took a step forward. Constance took aim at Blood, but it wasn't meant to be, as a bullet tore into her shoulder, spinning her around and onto the ground. The shot came from a pirate that was firmly planted on the rooftop. Jekyll watched as Constance went to the ground, and his mind suddenly went back to the day Bathory died, and his blood began to boil, and he knew what it meant when his blood pressure rose up. But this time he made no attempt to stop it. In the beginning, Mr. Hyde was a troll-like impish creature, But over time, he became much more as he evolved and grew into a large man with a powerful physique. The only explanation Jekyll equated it to was a developing child. Hyde started out as an infant and then grew into an adult. Captain Blood almost fell over his own boots as he stumbled backwards away from Mr. Hyde.
"Are you all right?"
asked Hyde as he looked down towards Constance.
Yes, just my shoulder.
She gasped as she rolled onto her back. Hyde then turned his attention towards the captain of the pirate band.
"Are you sure we need him alive, Captain?"
asked a nervous crew member.
"Yes, lad, we do. But never said how much alive. Get him, boys, and bring him to the ship."
Blood called out as he turned and hurried away from Mr. Hyde. The pirates rushed at Hyde. Then Hyde rushed towards the pirates. As he did, he began to swing his large fist, knocking 2 or 3 down in one effort.
Behind you!
Constance cried out as she fired several shots into 3 pirates that were attacking Hyde from the rear. Hyde grabbed one pirate and tossed him into another, and then he grabbed another one and tossed him into the air as if he were a mere bag of straw. "It feels good getting the old blood pumping once again," Hyde said as he grabbed another one of the pirates. Alejandro Vega was only in his early 30s. He was fit and was very active in the arts, as was his grandfather before him. He grew up in the Americas. He sported a thicker mustache than what his grandfather wore, and he had a small patch of hair cut into a perfect triangle just below his bottom lip. "My boy, you should carry it on," Thorndyke said as he patted the young man on his shoulders. "Well, my grandfather trained me for years, and after I returned from the university—" At that moment, a loud sound echoes through the trees, causing all 3 men to jump and look over their surroundings. "What on earth was that?" Dr. Thorndyke asked as he looked at his 2 companions. "That was gunfire," Bumpo said.
"You are all going to die,"
Dr. Caligari said from behind the men. Z. Another man went sailing into the air as Hyde easily flung him by his shirt collar.
"I am going to kill him,"
one of Blood's men said as he took aim for the rooftop.
"You do, and the captain will have your head,"
another sailor said as he looked over at his partner.
"Take out his leg instead,"
the sailor said with a grin. "What on earth is that?" Alejandro asked as he and his companion stepped from the forest thicket and into the village.
"I must aid these men,"
Alejandro said as he pulled his grandfather's sword from its sheath. "No, wait," Thorndyke said as he grabbed Alejandro by the elbow to hold him back. "He is on our side," he said as he seen a man with a rifle pointed at Mr. Hyde. "Go take care of the topside," Thorndyke said as he pulled a .45 caliber automatic from his coat pocket. "Let us go, Mr. Bumpo, and aid Mr. Hyde's endeavors," he finished as he started running towards the fight. "But what of him?" Natty asked as he motioned towards the still-bound Dr. Caligari. Bumpo turned towards the doctor, and with a strong right hand to the doctor's face, the doctor fell unconscious to the ground. Alejandro ran as hard as he could, and in doing so, he reached in a pouch that hung on his side and pulled the mask of Zorro, and quickly tied it around his head as he leaped onto some vines that were growing up from the side of the building. He then began climbing to the top.
"Hey, who was that?"
shouted one of the pirates as he watched Alejandro find sure footing on top of the rickety building.
"Be quiet, I'm trying to take my shot,"
the gunman said as he still was focusing on the leg of Mr. Hyde, when all at once he felt a heavy weight on his backside. The gunman turned slightly to see that his fellow pirate had fallen on top of him.
"Who are you?"
the gunman asked as he tried to free himself of his friend's weight. "I am Zorro." The mask gave him a feeling of complete freedom. He had never fought a battle in such a way. He was not angry. He felt no real emotion other than seeing the battle as a sport. And that is one of the lessons his grandfather had always taught him. The weakness of most men was that they viewed their battles too seriously, and in their seriousness they overcompensated and more often than not made fatal mistakes. But the fox was different. He knew if he viewed it as a sport, his enemies would try even harder, and then their emotions would overrun their senses, and the fox would be victorious, and used this method to his advantage very well. Alejandro was well liked by his peers. He was a businessman and had expounded on his family's wealth greatly. He had started and was head of several charities around the world. He was respected among his business associates, and his grandfather was very proud of him for his accomplishments. He had become the man he had hoped he would be. Zorro smiled at the gunman as he lay under his unconscious friend. The gunman looked Zorro over. He was nothing like described by his employer. He wore an open front white shirt. He had a bright red vest and gray trousers with brown riding boots. The mask was the only thing that looked remotely as his boss had described. Around his waist he wore a red sash with a saber sheath fastened to it.
"Now I want to know who employed you,"
Zorro said as he pointed the end of his sword into the face of the pirate.
"Hey, it's the old masked man himself,"
Hyde said with a wide grin as he punched the sense out of an assailing pirate.
"But he looks different,"
Hyde said as he stepped next to Constance Dunlap.
"Are you two all right?"
shouted Dr. Thorndyke as he fired a round into the shoulder of an attacking pirate.
Yes, we are fine. But how did you find us?
Constance asked as she gripped her wounded shoulder.
"We heard a gunshot,"
Thorndyke said as he watched most of the pirates fall into a retreat.
Who is that?
Constance asked, referring to the man at the edge of the forest firing an old single-shot musket.
"Oh, that's our tracker. He is a native from the Americas,"
Thorndyke said as he watched Bumpo fire a shot and reload with incredible speed. For loading a musket anyway.
He is good,
Constance said as she watched several men fall at the musket fire.
"Yes, he is, and for some reason he chooses to use that archaic weapon," Thorndyke said. "Well, it would appear the pirates have lost their appetite for a fight."
Hyde mused as he placed a hand on each hip and laughed as he watched several of the pirates stumble away from him.
"Say, is that really Zorro up on the roof? He seems to be different than I remember,"
Hyde mused as he watched the masked man.
"Yes, that is Zorro,"
Thorndyke said as he placed one of Constance's arms around his neck.
"We must get to the ship. The pirates will come back soon. They prefer the cover of darkness anyway,"
he concluded as he led Constance towards a building.
"I work for Captain Blood. He doesn't tell us where he gets his orders. We just follow him,"
the pirate said as he continued to lay underneath his friend.
"Very well. You live this day, but the next time we meet, it will be your last day on Earth,"
Zorro said as he quickly carved a Z deep into the flesh of the man's right cheek.